Hey, you all, welcome back. So I do apologize. I know that this is old by now. I know that this has been asked and answered and that this topic has been beat over the head several times. However, I still wanted to come in and give my opinion regarding Britney, Kenya Moore, and the whole situation. So I'm going to be giving you an outline of what we're going to discuss in this video, and also asking you all as the viewers, do Bravo and Andy support gun violence? Now, in my opinion, I believe they do. I think they mishandled this situation. I think that whatever, disciplinary action, and we'll talk about that later, was handed out, it probably should have been, not even probably, it should have been equally distributed to Brit. Andy writing this off as a mistake on Watch What Happens Live and even his, is it called Radio Andy show? All of those things to me support the answer yes, because how do you just explain away gun violence? Especially considering the country we're in, considering our community as Black people. How does Andy just say it's simply a mistake? A weapon that could take your life in an instant should not just be written away as a mistake. So for me, I'm looking forward to see how this is handled on the reunion. I'm looking forward to see how they will address this. If I know Andy and Bravo, like I think I do, they're going to fumble that ball. But I am kind of anxiously waiting how they will address this, because to me, I think the fire has been hot enough for them to address it. So just to give you an outline, we're going to start off by talking about what actually happened, because that's going to lay the foundation for everything else that occurred thereafter. Then we're going to get into a very, and I do mean very brief discussion about anti-blackness. I've seen some commentary that's suggesting that certain characters of reality TV shows belong on certain networks that cater to violence and how that's anti-black. And I'm here to dispel that myth, okay? Then we're going to talk about Kenya's grand opening and how she lost control and how what she did was in fact foul. Now, let me say this. If you are a Brit or a Kenya fan, you may not like this video. You're welcome to stay. You're welcome to share commentary, but I'm just letting you know in advance. Next, we're going to talk about Bravo's investigation, or lack thereof, should I say. Because I have a lot of questions for Bravo and Miss Andy. Yes, I do. Then we're going to talk about Cynthia. Briefly, talk about her as a friend. Talk about her as how she has seemed to taking a liking to Britney, and she gives her a lot of coddling, almost like a mother role. We'll talk about it. Next, we're going to get into Brit being a forever victim. We realized that watching the show, almost every episode that did not have Kenya in it had Kenya's name in it, which is ridiculous, because if she got, if she got her pink slip and her walking papers, we shouldn't even be talking about the shit. But it seems like that's all Britney had to offer. But we also see that now she's getting ready and has attacked verbally some of the other castmates. But we'll get there. And lastly, we're going to discuss what the punishment should have been, if any. Right? So let's start from the beginning. What actually happened that caused this? What happened was that Brit has some type of issue with Kenya that we do not understand. I don't know if something happened behind the scenes. I don't know if a producer or other members of production told her to go after the Queen Bee. I don't know. When I say Queen Bee, I think of it in terms of Kenya. At the time when she was a full cast member, she was the only full cast member of the show besides Portia that was an OG. Well, not an OG, but semi-OG. You guys what I'm saying. Like, Nini's not there, Kim's not there, Sheree, Candy. So she's a semi-OG along with Portia. I don't know what the point was, because she seems to almost immediately have an issue with Kenya. Not being satisfied with how Kenya greeted her. Kenya, greeted everyone. She hugged the ones that she did know. She said, "Hi, you all look beautiful." I have no clue why that was an issue. Britney felt she deserved a hug, and mama, don't nobody owe you nothing. And come to find out, per Kenya, she's not a hugger. So people who are not huggers, I am a hugger, they barely want to hug the people they do know and like, yet alone a stranger. So why is your expectation that she needed to hug you? That doesn't make sense. It was giving, I'm trying to start drama. It was giving, I need a moment and I'm going to make sure I get it on the show. Let's jump to the ball. Kenya calls Brit a peasant. This caused Brit to go into a spiral. It doesn't make sense because honestly, in the Housewives universe, I mean, they've talked about each other's mamas, children. They've talked about wigs. They've talked about height. They've talked about weight. They've talked about businesses, homes. They've talked about pets. I mean, they have gone in on each other. And she called you a peasant, which was light work, especially with Kenya and her sharp tongue. That was light work. That wasn't even a jab. That was more like a tapping on the shoulder. Like, listen, little girl, don't try me. Brit became angry, violently jumps out her seat, right? And you hear her talking crap. She's so upset over being called a peasant. And according to everyone else on the cast, they found it odd as well. She called you a peasant. Girl, get over it. You've been talked about worse by better. Or maybe not. But there was no reason for her to be that angry over the word peasant. This causes Brit to lose control. She keeps asking for her husband, and that was supposed to be a dig towards Kenya, right? Because Kenya doesn't have, is she still married to Mark? Has the divorce been granted? I don't know. So we're going to say that Kenya technically is legally married, but she doesn't, her and Mark aren't together. So Kenya doesn't have a husband. So a lot of women and men use that as a dig to single women. Like, oh, I got a man, I got a husband. Where my husband? I got somebody that loves me. Yes, he loves you and that clogged up ass nose you have. Yes, he does, ma'am. You're right. You should be proud of that because that nasally sound alone drives me crazy. Drives me insane. As they're walking out the door, you hear Kelly say, do you want to call and see if he, Brit's husband is outside? Brit responds, I mean, I still got my pistol, so Kenya heard it. You see Kenya talking to Drew, and she tilts her head in Brittany's direction. And she kind of like opens her mouth like, did this chick just mention a pistol? Like, calling someone a peasant shouldn't require all that. I've always said the punishment has to match the crime. If she called you a peasant, why don't you call her something bad? Why don't you talk about her? Remember when Kenya and Portia got into it, she said, okay, bye, Ashy. You got to be able to zing back. Where's the wit? Where's the quickness, honey? You came on this show with quick-witted women, and all you got is that you a gat-toting pistol hole on your damn street. Come on, crime mom. That's all you got? I mean, I got my pistol. That's the first time she says it. Then as soon as her husband gets there, then the boisterous, big and bad Britney comes out, and she specifically said, play that ish in front of the cameras. Don't play that with me. I don't play them games. I've got whips, pistols, everything. So let's pause there, because I've heard some commentary of people saying, oh no, she wasn't threatening Kenya. We need to be able, and I blame George Bush, No Child Left Behind, because so many of you know how to speak the English language, but you don't understand context. Look at the context in which it was said. Don't play that in front of me. Play that with the cameras. Don't play that with me. I don't play them games. I've got whips, pistols, and everything. That is a threat, letting you know if you play around with me, I got something that will lay you down. That is a threat of gun violence. That is a problem. That is an issue. And immediately you hear Brit's husband says, you took it off because he knew that she shouldn't have said that on camera. That's when she proceeds to say, this is real life. You gonna be respectful. You gonna be respectful. And if you don't, you gonna learn today. You hear her threatening her. That's what that is. She's threatening her that if you cross me again, I got a pistol that has bullets with your name on it. I don't see how that is acceptable. I don't see why Bravo immediately didn't remove her from the set. That is a problem, that any little bit of confrontation, someone is ready for violence. I could see if Kenya threatened her with violence. I could see if Kenya threatened her with a weapon. Then all bets are off at this point because I have to defend myself. But nothing in that environment warranted that response. Nothing. Even the castmate said, oh yeah, Britt was she doing too much, because she was. And that segues into us talking about anti-blackness. I'm going to tell you right away, Brit needs to be on Zeus Network. Zeus Network, Basketball Wives, VH1, Love and Hip Hop, they condone that type of outlandish, unnecessary violence. It is not anti-black to say that a specific character does not fit with the demographic of the cast or the audience that watches the show. I don't watch Zeus Network. I have no interest. There's no way you can get me to turn on anything from Zeus Network. Natalie Nunn and I have to be around the same age, and she is still acting a fool. How financially desperate do you have to be? Oh, how bad off do you have to be 30-something years old, still talking about fighting women on a show called Baddies? Oh, you couldn't pay me enough. You couldn't pay me enough. And I'm not dissing anybody who watches that show, but everything on TV is catered to a specific demographic. Disabuse yourself from this myth that everything's for everyone, because it's not. Some people watch the Food Network. Some people watch the ID channel. My husband can't stand true crime. I like it. He won't watch it. If I turn Forensic Files on, he out of there. He don't play that. Because to him, that's not entertainment. That's somebody's life. And he's absolutely right. I don't disagree. But for him, he can't watch that because this is someone's life they're talking about that has been lost or seriously harmed and impacted by violence. He can't stand it. So there's a demographic for everything. Brit does not belong on Real Housewives. There is nothing housewife about her, but I do get Love and Hip Hop. I do get Zeus Network. I do get Basketball Wives, 3 shows that have been at the helm of violence. Everyone remembers when Evelyn Lozada took wine bottles, winded it up like she was at, Wrigley Field, like she was in the Cardinal Stadium, and threw it. Everybody remembers her jumping up on a table, her bare, nasty feet, and trying to attack Jennifer. We don't even have to go through all the violence in Love and Hip Hop. One major example is Jocelyn and Stevie tearing up the cast left and right. Zeus, there's a fight every other second. That's all they do on there. Brit does not belong on a cast that is semi-civilized. She belongs amongst the low ranks of people that think everything needs to be handled with violence. That's not anti-black. That's just the truth. I would say the same thing if this was a predominantly white cast. What was that one girl from Miami? What was her name? The first Miami. She had short hair, and she would curse. I mean, she was violent, and in my opinion, she was high on drugs all the time. I forgot. Y'all know she looked thin. Her face was kind of shaped like a bird. She had a very strong jawline. She had blonde hair. I forget her name, but she was always slapping somebody and whooping ass over on Real Housewives of Miami. And she didn't need to be on the show either. And that's just the bottom line. You don't get to come and abuse people that you work with under the guise of a reality TV show. But the problem is that reality TV blurs those lines. Okay? It's a blurring of the lines. And you see that even with Potomac. Not Jailbird Karen, but Candace sends Jailbird Karen a text. And Jailbird then tells HR and covers it under the guise of, I was trying to get you help. Meanwhile, she drinking and driving and crashing her vehicle. See how that works? These are employees. This is a company. And they do have rules and regulations. However, Bravo, along with a lot of other networks, have been laxed for the sake of producing, quote unquote, a good dramatic show. But no, it is not anti-black to say that certain people don't fit what a cast member of the Housewives should be. And that's not to say these housewives are kings and queens. It's to say that there is a specific type of person, and Britney's not it. Personal opinion, you all are free to disagree. Let's move on to Kenya's grand opening. Oh boy, Kenya lost control. What she did was disgusting. It was deplorable. It was low down and dirty. It was foul. I have no clue why she didn't get a restraining order. I have no clue why Kenya wasn't more creative. Kenya is such a creative person. That Kenya, more hair care. That was creative. It was funny. It was a ha-ha. Kenya could have done something like set up a she could have set up a multi-security point. And everybody and everyone got in, did not have to go to the security point except for Britt. Britt should have been the only one. She should have timed it to where all the housewives is coming in. Oh, is your name Britt Edie? Yes, you're on our special list. Come follow us. Baby, she should have security. Do you know that thing they take to see if you got the metal detector? They should have been checking her purse. Ma'am, could you take your shoes off? She should have thoroughly embarrassed her from the moment that woman stepped out the cast vehicle. That's what Kenya should have did. She should have them, can you take off, do you have a hat on? Can we feel around on your wig? We just need to make sure you don't have any weapons here. We don't want any violence. And, there's been a threat at a prior event, and we just want to make sure everything's under control. I guarantee you, Britt would have left there crying had Kenya did that. Britt wouldn't have even walked in to the grand opening had Kenya did something as creative and as funny as that. And it should have been obvious. That's why I said her going through a multi-point security check in front of the other housewives or guests. Like, oh, Britt Edie, it's you. Security, we need your help over here. Britt Edie's on our special list. When I tell you that woman would have been thoroughly embarrassed. That's what Kenya should have done. That's what she could have done. But using your grand opening, or is it the grand reopening? You all tell me. Using your grand opening to embarrass someone and to display nude or lewd images of them, that's not cool. There's no excuse for it. There's no, but she was scared. That was Kenya scared? I don't think so. I think she was concerned, which is equally as valid as fear. Fear is not the only emotion that should cause a network or production company to act. Hey, she threatened me with a pistol at the last cast event. What are y'all going to do about this? Because if she has to be there, I got something for that multi-point security check. I would have thoroughly embarrassed her. She would have never even made it in. Or just say, hey, Bravo, she can't come. Because the investigation you all did wasn't good enough, she has to go. She's not allowed near my business. I don't want that bad, dark energy in my business. I don't care what y'all say. She just gonna have to miss her pay today. I'm not sure what was Kenya's thoughts. I did watch her video. For me, Kenya's videos didn't really shed a lot of light, except for the fact that Bravo did a sham of an investigation. I think Kenya mentioned how she was threatened with the pistol more times than what we saw, more times than what was actually aired, which I believe. Because the woman mentioned it right away. They were in the hallway. Well, I got my pistol with me. Okay, Pistol P. Okay, Muscatool, we got it. She mentioned it literally almost immediate. So I believe Kenya. But I think that she ruined her grand opening. And that's what's sad. And I wish someone would have taken the brick out her hand. And let me explain to you what that means. And for some of you who have been subscribed to me for a while, you've heard this story before, so I'll be brief. When I was in college, I had 3 other roommates my junior year in college. One of those roommates, I'm not going to get into it deep. All of us fell out with her. That's all I'm going to say. She ended up departing from the university. Again, that's all I'm going to say. Well, her friends somehow got a hold of my number, of all people, and decided to call me one by one and threaten me. And I'm going to tell y'all something. Canary don't play that now, and she damn sure didn't play it at 1920. I'm just going to be honest with you. And so I remember saying to one of her friends, if your friend comes back to this city, when I see her, it's on site. And I meant that, unfortunately. I'm not condoning my behavior. I would never do that now. Well, there was an alpha party. And I heard that she was in town. And sure enough, I got to the party, me and my friends, and she was there. And at the end of the party, let's just say, I decided to handle and stand on business. After I handled and standed on business, it wasn't enough for me and my stupid self. And I told my friend, drive me to where she's spending the night at. Somehow, some way, we talked to some people. And they told us where she was spending the night at one of her friends' apartments. We drove by there, drove in the parking lot. There was her car. I jumped out the car. There was a brick on the ground. I picked up the brick and tried to throw it. Baby, it was so heavy it fell out of my hand. It never hit the car. My other friends are sitting in the car watching me do this. I had one friend jump out and say, I almost said my name, and said, Canary, don't do this. You're better than this. She said, don't, you want to go to law school? She said, girl, you gotta at the venue. Just put the brick down, Canary. And she physically took my hands, led them down to the ground. I believe there was snow on the ground, and put it down. She said, now let's go get something to eat. I wish that someone would have taken the brick out Kenya's hands. Now, I know someone is going to say, as adult women, they aren't responsible to do so, and you would be correct. They are not responsible to do it so. But I wish that in the moment when she was going off, that someone tried a little bit more vigorously to intervene. We do see Kelly with the flowers and the note. We do see Shamia, and she was cut off by Kenya. But I wish that someone would have said, you know what, after the first poster, Kenya, this is about you. Look at this beautiful grand open, girl. You look good. Let's cut this short. We ain't got to let them know what she did. She gone, girl. She left already. Let's just enjoy. I wish someone would have done that for her. Again, they are not required. They were not required to. But as a friend, someone should have taken the proverbial brick out of her hands the way my friend did. And I have always remembered that, and I will. And if I see my friends going down the deep end, I take the proverbial brick out of their hands. Not because I have to, but because as a friend, that's what I'm here to do. Because it was done for me. And it saved me. Hell, I could have been arrested. I could have had a record. That could have impacted me getting into law school. That friend literally probably saved me and my reputation. While my other friend sat there and said, hell, she grown. She want to do it. And that doesn't make them lesser friends. I was grown. I did want to do it. I was angry. You have your friends call and threaten me. 19, 20-year-old Canary ain't playing that. 30-something Canary, I'm not even worried about it. For you to even call me with some foolishness, baby, blocked. and if I feel like being a caramel Karen, let me get this restraining order real quick. We're not going. But at 19, 20, I wasn't thinking like that. I was thinking with ego. I was thinking stupidly. And Kenya in that moment was thinking with ego, and she was thinking stupidly. And I wish someone would have just shut it down if they could have. Because Kenya seen, you could look in her eyes and tell that Kenya had dove off the deep end. She ruined her own grand opening, and she possibly ruined her career. That she has to take accountability for. No one told her to do that. She did it on her own. Now, let's move on to Bravo's investigation. I have a lot of questions. Who all was interviewed? What questions were asked? How long was said investigation? How did they reach the conclusion that Britt did not have a gun? A lot of investigations happen after the fact. That's not the problem. But how do you prove after the fact that a gun was not on the premises? To Kenya's point, and I didn't even know this, their bags and purses and nothing is checked to see if they do or don't have weapons on them. That is a dangerous work environment. You're coming to work with violent, volatile people like Portia and Britt, and y'all not checking purses. And I'm not saying it only needs to be done for Atlanta. I'm talking about all of them. To me, that's a safety hazard that you are putting women who are oftentimes drunk, possibly high, together in a room to argue. And no one's checking bags. No one's ensuring there aren't any weapons. So how did Bravo prove it? Because if they even talk to Britt and her staff and her husband are going to take her side. They're going to have her back and lie for her. Britney says she had a pistol. And if you want me to believe that Britney is not a liar, then she had a pistol. There's an interview that has resurfaced from a year or two ago where she says she knows she a gat-toting, pistol-holding ninja on your damn street. And that she always keep the heat. That's what she said, not me. She said she carried with her everywhere she goes. And here's my concern when it comes to people like Britt. Britt is a coward. She is a person that will pew you for no reason at all. You pissed her off, so let me pull a gun on you. See, let me tell you something. I was taught by the best, my dad, former law enforcement, may he rest in peace. And my dad told me a pew pew, a musket-tool, a pistol, a gun, whatever you want to call it, it is not a toy. You need to be sure that if you carry a gun, that you have settled within yourself that if someone attacks you and your life is at risk, that you will take their life. Because if someone should attack you, you don't have time to be analytical. You have to save your life, and you have to come to yourself and God, just you and the Lord. And know that if you are in danger and you are in fear for your life, that you will take someone else's to protect yours. A gun is not a toy. My dad hated those colorful guns, pink and stuff, because I wanted one that was, Tiffany Robbins, egg blue or rose gold. And he was like, why? At the time, we didn't have Baby Genius. And he said, because if you have a child, they're going to think it's a toy. It's not a toy. It's something serious. This is not for fun. That's why I get real nervous when I hear people tell women just to carry one. No, don't carry one. You need to go take classes. You need to learn how to load it. You need to learn how to aim and unload it, if you know what I mean. I don't know if I can say that word on here. SHOOT. You need to learn how to do all those things. And my dad always taught me, you need to carry one that packs a punch. These little weapons that y'all wouldn't be carrying, I don't put it in my bra, in my purse. My dad said, when you pull it and you use it, it needs to put someone down. You're not playing no games, because you're not supposed to be using it just because you're angry. If someone attacks you or they're trying to, kidnap you, you need to be able to get to it quick, in a hurry, and take it out. You don't have time for reasonableness in that moment. You have time to protect your life. Brit is a person that she would get into a road rage incident and use it. There was a road rage incident like in 2022 here where whatever happened. And these two people get out the car. The boyfriend punches the other car. The car speeds off. The girlfriend takes the boyfriend's gun out the car and shoots at it. And one of the bullets went through a car at the dealership. Thankfully, no one was harmed. That is what happens when you don't have control over your emotions. And that is what Brit reminds me of. The mere mention of her being a peasant, she's ready to take someone's life or seriously injure it, because that's the only thing a pistol can do. And we have too much gun violence in America and within our community to sit here and threaten it, and for Andy and Cynthia to pass it off as, oh, it was a mistake. Threatening someone with a musket-tool is not a mistake, because if it is used and if it lodges into one's body, it is irreversible. It is not funny. It is not a mistake. Britney should have been fired immediately. I'm jumping ahead, but we're going to talk about the disciplinary action afterwards. Bravo's investigation was not thorough enough for me, because how do you just say, well, Brit said she didn't have a gun, so there you have it. That was not an investigation. You all failed Kenya, and you failed the cast, because then that gives other people the notion that they can go around threatening violence with weapons, and there won't be a problem as long as you said you didn't have one on you. Because what they do, they didn't check her car. They didn't check her purse. They didn't check her husband. They didn't check anybody. So how did you come to the conclusion that she didn't have it? Because why did she mention it? And if she didn't have it, regardless, she's a coward. The fact that she feels the need to carry a pistol everywhere tells me a lot about her. And she will use it if she is feeling froggy. Okay? Okay. Now let's get to Cynthia. I think Cynthia had every right to hold her friend accountable in that moment. I actually think it was the proper thing to do. She wasn't wrong to confront her. She deserved every bit of what Cynthia gave her, and it was in a loving manner. However, my personal issue with Cynthia is that she later is seen, right, on Watch What Happens Live. She talks to Andy and says, oh, well, Brit made a mistake. Cynthia, let someone threaten you with a gun and see if you say it's a mistake. There's no amount of flowers or apologies that make that situation okay. She has said it multiple times. And flowers, some cheap funky flowers is supposed to smooth over everything? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Because why is she so dependent on a gun? That doesn't make sense. I also don't like the coddling that Cynthia has done of Britt. When they were sitting down talking to Angela and Drew, right? And Cynthia was like, well, y'all didn't have no photos displayed of you for everyone to see. And you didn't have someone threaten you with a weapon. To me. And we'll get to this part in a minute when we talk about punishment and disciplinary action. I don't think, well, I'll save that until we get to the punishment section. But I don't like the coddling of Britt. Britt is a grown woman. And she has milked this storyline of, I made some mistakes. Baby, you was on. Listen, your parents did not have control of you. You were in videos when you were a teenager in high school that says everything about your parents to me. You being a cam girl, all these things. I made some mistakes. No, baby. Once I found out she was one of Rick Ross's former boos, that told me everything I need to know about her. That man is not charming. He's not intelligent. He referred to Africa as a country one time years ago on Twitter. Go look it up. Okay? He's not attractive. The only thing he has is money. So for a woman to intentionally date Rick Ross in this day and age, baby, that you're a certain type of person. And this innocent role of and all this crying and stuff, you weren't crying when you threatened her with a weapon. You weren't crying when you did all that, talking about you got whips. I mean, what is this? Is this Catwoman? Are we talking about Eartha Kitt? Holly Berry? Or are we talking about Rihanna, S&M? Are we talking about slavery? Like, what type of whips we talking? Because who threatens that? I got whips and pistols. What is it? She's so corny. She's corny. She's a cornball. And she's carrying a loaded weapon. No one sees the concern here. Okay, fine. I also don't like how Andy, on his Radio Andy show, him and his partners talking about, oh, it was a mistake. Then let me say this. If everyone thinks that what Britney did was so okay, then how about y'all take y'all ass down to the reunion? And when Andy says something that you all don't like, say, you know what? I got my pistol, and see, will you have a job? Go down to your employer's office and get into a verbal altercation with your coworker. And then as you're walking away, say, you know what? You're going to learn some respect. Yeah, I got pistols and whips. And see, won't you be getting a banker's box to pack up your shit in 3 seconds? Don't play with me. Nowhere on the planet Earth is that acceptable for you to be like, you know what, I got a pistol after you get into an argument with someone. No, ma'am. There have been threats that were lighter than what Britt Edie displayed that cleared out a whole club. Don't play with me. You're being willfully obtuse if you think that wasn't a threat. Context is everything. She threatened that woman. And so this mistake is not a mistake. We have too much violence in our country for you all just to willy-nilly explain it off as a mistake. That is disrespectful. It is ignorant. It is irresponsible. Because I guarantee you, if somebody threatened Andy, he wouldn't take it as just a minor mistake. Because what does that say about, oh, it's just a mistake? No, it's not. It was intentional. She said it multiple times. And if you did do a thorough interview, you would have uncovered that interview she did a year or two ago and found that she always talking about somebody's muscatool. Come on, somebody. Britt is a forever victim, crying and needing to be coddled about this situation, not wanting the other castmates to speak to Kenya, who is actually their friend. How do you get to control who someone associates with? Just like Kenya can't control Cynthia. Kenya has no right to control Cynthia. But it's my opinion that if Cynthia is truly Kenya's friend, then you should not be coddling this girl and taking up for her. What Kenya did was wrong, 100%. But in the words of Angela, why did Kenya react that way? It's not an excuse, but you threatened her with violence, severe violence. And now you don't want people to talk to her, so you're controlling, violent, and abusive. Great. We've got a great housewife here. She lashed out at Angela. She said she lost her license. Brit is a liar. She said she lost her license, and Angela was like, well, what was the cause? Have you been listening? Babe, when I tell you I would have knocked the snot out her nose. Don't you talk to me like that. Have you been listening? I can barely hear what you're saying, muffled ass. Barely. Yeah, I was listening. She said they have to have cause. Like, what caused them to take your license? Then as she talks, I'm under investigation. Just as I suspected. What Angela said, just like I thought. Because ain't nobody just removed your license. There's an investigation process. Girl, please bye. Because if they did a background check, wouldn't they know about those nudie films you did? Or maybe not. Maybe you didn't disclose it. Maybe the background check, didn't find those things. All that could be possible. But you lying and saying your license was taken away when really you were just under investigation. Come on, ma'am. Come on, please. It's the lies. It's the constant need to be coddled. It's the constant crying. But as soon as her and Angela got into a back and forth, and Angela said she had stretch marks. When Angela said she had stretch marks around her mouth, baby, I about cried. When I tell you I fell out in the middle of my floor. Then you want to stand up, right? We have another violent maniac on the show. That's why her and Portia get along. No shade. Because this video is not about Portia. I don't want to take, I don't want Portia to catch a stray, but it's true. Now, let's talk about the punishment. I think both Kenya and Britt should have received disciplinary action. And I think that the punishment should have been the same. If Kenya was going to be suspended or terminated, then so should have Britt. There's no way Bravo can explain to me, not that they owe me an explanation, but there's no way that Bravo can explain to me that what they did was fair because, and I talked about this, I alluded to it a few minutes ago. To me, the threat of gun violence is not less of a threat than showing someone's nude or lewd images. In my opinion, being threatened with a pistol is worse than showing someone's lewd images. I didn't say both of them were okay or one was okay. I think what Kenya did was completely disgusting. I think she went off the rails and that was not okay. I don't care what the reason was. There was a way she could have handled her differently. And she chose not to. That was intentional and it was a decision that she will have to live with. It is not acceptable what Kenya did. Kenya, whatever career she had, if it's ruined, she ruined it. She has to take accountability with that, period. So I'm not saying what Kenya did was okay because it was not. And I want to say that because, people get selective amnesia or selective hearing around here. But that was not worse than Britt threatening her with a weapon. And that is also what bothers me about this situation is how it's being glossed over as a mistake. But yet what Kenya did was so shocking and everyone was so upset. Portia of all people who lied. You want to talk about defamation of character? Her and Phaedra concocted a whole lie because Phaedra was pissed at Candy. A whole lie. And she was acting like she's so disgusted. Everybody was just so, oh my God, that was too far. Was it not too far when she threatened her? I just don't think it's being equally weighed, and it should be. And the punishment should have been that both were terminated or suspended. And also with Britt being a newbie, there's no investment there. There's no audience investment. She really doesn't have a large fan base. She's new to the show. Just let her go. Go ahead and sever the business relationship and then give Kenya a suspension. Don't finish the season with her. I do think they should have allowed her at the reunion. The fact that they invited her and then uninvited her says a lot to me. I don't know if she's been fired, but again, that inviting and uninviting, the writing is on the wall, so to speak. Okay. I also know that employers don't like when you speak out. So Kenya being as vocal as she is probably also led to that. And it's unfortunate. It really is, because this situation did not have to happen like this. It should have been, something should have been done immediately to Britt. That threatening, because everyone heard her, because when the camera panned around and literally Kenya, you know, she's at Portia's car. Portia's car is a short distance from where Britt, Edie, and her husband and Kelly are. And she's, you know, you gonna learn respect. And you see the other cameramen feel like everyone heard that. And I'm just not buying that Kelly didn't hear it. I'm not, especially a woman who was in a DV situation. To gloss over this to me is disgusting. And I like Kelly. I like Kelly. I really like Angela. I like Angela. Angela came and said, you know what? You want a housewife? Let me bring it to you. Keep Angie. I like Angie. Okay. And I like Kelly. But Kelly seems to be a flip-flopper. The size she decides to support, it doesn't seem consistent to me. But you're going to get what you're looking for, Kelly, because in the next episodes, we're going to see how Britney goes in on you for no reason. Okay? So anyways, get down in the comments and let me know your thoughts. I do plan to come in here and discuss Real Housewives of Atlanta. We'll just pick up from the most recent episode. I know Phaedra's supposed to be coming back. Lord help me. Oh, God help me. Oh, but we're gonna have to suffer through this. And we're gonna have to talk about Portia and Shamia's friendship, and how Portia is not a girl's girl, and how Portia and her mama, especially that mother of hers. And you know, I've talked about Portia's mother. Okay, I've discussed her about, you know, Portia's relationship with Lauren, and how Portia seems to be jealous of her sister Lauren. And I don't care if they have different mothers, that's your sister. You know, y'all basically look like twins, right? If someone said they were fraternal twins, I would believe them. Like, why is there this jealousy? And it seems to stem from Portia's mother. But we'll talk about that in the next episode, okay? So let me know your thoughts. Get down in the comments. And if there is nothing else, I will see you all later. Mwah. Bye.